And there's also a range of awareness levels. So you can have, a Hapa on one end that's in complete denial about it, for example,
Yeah, for
and
sure.
wants to hide it and doesn't
Right.
want to discuss it or confront it. And then on the other end, you can have a vigilante Hapa that just pushes in
Right.
your face all the time. But, so it's like when you approach someone who appears to be Hapa for whatever reason, you don't know who you're approaching. So you don't know
Right.
what the response is going to be. So you take a risk.
Right. Yeah. And I guess one of the other things is that I was thinking of is shoot, I lost it. Sorry, but
Let me respond a little bit to one of you said before. One of the things there in the 1980s, four dissertations came out on multiracial identity. And what they did was to let us know and help us, and sort of those of us who've gone on since, that, there's some confusion at times, there's some anxiety at times, there is angst. It's real, and it's okay. You're not, everyone has their own angst, they have their things. Ours may be more complex sometimes, but it's legitimate, and it's okay to wrestle with that, to grab it and hang on to it and roll around in the ground with it until you come to some resolution with it. But that the struggle is real, the struggle is legitimate, right? Because so much of the other sort of what happened before that and identity stuff, to have that struggle, to have that wrestling, was seen as not being legitimate. The other thing I'll say is, and while all of us on the panel in our own body knows the fallacy of biological race because we exist, right? The social construction of race, however, is still very much real. Just because race isn't biological, it's still a political and social construction.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's a realness to that. One only needs to look at any set of statistics on socioeconomic indicators,
Right.
and it tells you that if you're a black person, you're in a world of hurt, by and large. I mean, if you just across looking at the numbers, so something's happening out there, right? So race does matter, and it's real, but we get to challenge, I think, the conversation about it and what it means and how it's used, right? To identify with other Hapas is just one part of your identity. It's not your whole identity, right? In that range, right? So the vigilante, they get stuck in that place that that's the only identity they have. And for those of us who've been at this for a long time, with those folks, we would work with them as much to say, hey, there's more to it, right? But and sort of the last thing, one thing that I think that technology has helped with is that with the different websites, whether it's Kip Fulbeck's websites on Hapa.
wearehapa.com.
Wearehapa.com, Maven, all sorts of different, there's these virtual places where you can read the stories of it. And now, because of I think the forward thinking and progressive thinking of the museum, discover Nikkei, that, that you can hear the stories so that you aren't alone. And that's the other thing that I think that research, and then the numerous authors and writers and performers to let you know that it's legitimate, even though angst sells and they have to sell it that way, but and that it's real and it's okay and you're not alone.
I think identity, whether it's gender identity, racial identity, whatever, I think it's very fluid. And I know that in different times in my life that I was a different person. So you go through this evolution of, for different reasons, where you are, who your friends are, et cetera. You change. Becoming a parent, I've really changed. So I mean, the things that I used to resent about my mother, with the, it's like, why can't she be softer or more gentle, and why does it always have to be, if you fall and you scrape your knee, get back up, ganbatte, just constant, be tough. And then now that I'm a mother, I see myself saying that, to my kid, come on, shidero. And I'm like, oh my God, I've turned into my mother.
I probably strongly identify as Asian Pacific American or sort of Japanese American in specific. Part of it's my community involvements as well as, I mean, I never not Hapa, but sort of, you know, in those involvements. When I got brought to Loyola Marymount University, they asked me to hire a new chair for African American Studies, and so I had to get very much immersed in the African American community. And so in some ways, so in different settings, that identity takes precedence. And in that particular job for that year, it was very important because I was hopping and the other issues that I had to deal with in another community. That was the primary identity on campus for that year and that purpose until folks got to know me. And once they got to know me, then I sort of was able to then move the way I generally move in and between different groups. So I think that the nice thing about it is that, and sometimes the hard thing about it is the flexibility to have this movement. But one can only have that flexibility, you know, and it's hard, you know, you talk about the double minority stuff. It's hard not to be ashamed of a part of who you are depending on sort of what the larger societal discourse is about, or large societal discussion, right? You know, I always said that when people said they all wanted to be like Mike, you know, in the ads for Michael Jordan, they wanted to have his money, they wanted to have his skill, but they didn't want to be a black man, you know, not when it came down to it. And so I think that that's something that I had to wrestle with and sort of understand that I had to be proud of myself as an African American, right? If I can be proud of myself as an African American, then there's no way my daughter could be proud of herself as an African American, right? It was easy for me to be proud of myself as a Japanese American because, you know, we're honorary whites these days. But then again, I couldn't be honorary white because I'm not.